Basically, we feel like the most important thing for us to do is to help create better lines of communication between those groups, the farmers and the processors, and the Department of Ag, because it feels like for the most part, there's kind of a pretty big disconnect there.
That's Ben Davies, one of the leaders of the Farmer Processor Education and Outreach Subcommittee of the Pennsylvania Hemp Steering Committee. This is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Harlock, and my guests today are Ben Davies and Chet Lapp, both of whom have been on the show before talking about their individual hemp operations. But this time, they're here in their official capacity as members of the Pennsylvania Hemp Steering Committee leadership team. And so we'll talk about their work on the steering committee and how they plan to connect with farmers and processors. So before we get into today's show, I just wanted to address the fact that there was no show last week. I don't know if you missed me or not, but I missed all of you. So I'm back this week. I took the week off. I was convalescing after some minor surgery. All good now. So thank you for your patience and understanding. All right, let's get into some nuggets of hemp news. So first, Hemp Industry Daily is reporting that a town in North Texas, Wichita Falls, has authorized $2.8 million worth of incentives to lure Panda Biotech to town to build a hemp decortication facility. Panda Biotech is based in Dallas, and they are developing hemp facilities for premium textile-grade fiber and cellulose, and they've got machinery that will process approximately 10 tons of industrial hemp per hour. All right, good luck, Wichita Falls. Hemp Industry Daily is also reporting that there are 2 grant opportunities available for hemp farmers, but the application deadlines are quickly approaching. The first grant is called the Socially Disadvantaged Groups Grant, with a maximum award amount of $175,000, and is eligible only to co-ops, groups of co-ops, or cooperative development centers, which must be governed by a majority of individuals who are members of socially disadvantaged groups and are providing technical assistance to socially disadvantaged groups in rural areas. The deadline to apply is August 10th. The second USDA grant is called the Rural Cooperative Development Grant and has a maximum award of $200,000 and has a 25% fund matching requirement. It's only available to nonprofit corporations or institutes of higher education. The deadline to apply for this one is August 3rd. Okay, some news from Michigan, where hemp growers have been operating under the 2014 Farm Bill pilot program. The new regulation would align the state's program with the USDA's interim final rule. The new regulations were passed by the state legislature at the end of June and now are awaiting the governor's signature. Some of the changes to the program include an increase in annual licensing fees from $100 to $1,250 and a requirement to test for total THC within 15 days of harvest. Okay, some news from closer to home here in Pennsylvania. Near Columbia, Lancaster County, a grain dryer that was being used to dry hemp exploded, causing a fire that destroyed the barn and the house. The grain dryer belonged to Floyd Landis of Floyd's of Leadville, who was renting the barn space to dry the hemp. I reached out to Floyd's of Leadville for comment, but have not heard back yet. I did speak with one of the owners of the farm, Patty McConley, who lost her house, barn, and a lot of the inventory for her Alpaca fiber business. She is thankful, though, because she says it could have been much worse, and thanks to the grace of God, none of her family was injured. And among the many animals at the farm, including alpacas and a camel, only 2 cats perished in the blaze. Okay, this next nugget isn't necessarily news, but it's a nugget nonetheless. This also comes from Hemp Industry Daily, which if you don't check out that website, you should. There's always great information about the industry there. This is a sort of a top 10 list put together by Kristen Nichols, who has been on this show before. These are the top 10 reasons why hemp entrepreneurs can still be optimistic about the industry. Number 1, real agronomy has finally come to cannabis through university extension services afforded to hemp as a legal commodity crop to improve crop science and production. Number 2, crop protection options, pesticides and biopesticides registered for hemp through the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for safe application and consumption. Number 3, USDA involvement with resources to research and develop the hemp industry. Number 4, crop insurance is now available, both privately and government-backed, to help mitigate risk. Number 5, private sector is opening its wallets, investing into the hemp supply chain. Number 6, e-commerce is making hemp-derived products like CBD more accessible to consumers. Number 7, CBD is not over. Consumers spent $4.2 trillion globally on wellness products in 2018, according to the Global Wellness Institute. And CBD is a huge part of that, particularly in personal care. Number 8, unmatched global opportunities. There are challenges globally, but it's easier to import and export for hemp businesses. Number 9, the herd mentality. Companies are investing in new uses for hemp waste from stalks and the woody central core of the hemp plant, including for building materials to rebuild the economy. And number 10, fiber is arriving. Mainstream businesses are putting hemp fiber and textiles into consumer products. Nichols goes on to say that we still have growing pains and the hemp industry has serious challenges, just like the cannabis space does, but the industry is going to grow through 2021. I will have links to all of these stories on the show page for this episode on lancasterfarming.com. Okay, so let's get into our interview with Chet Lapp and Ben Davies. If you've listened to the show for a while, you've heard these guys talk before. Chet is the CEO of Keystone Agriscience. He's a member of Pennsylvania's Plain community, often referred to as the Amish. He works with a group of farmers in Lancaster County to grow CBD hemp. And Ben, he was just on the show a few weeks ago with his wife, Cara. They farm hemp up in Berks County under the name of Wild Fox Provisions. All right, here we go. Chet Lapp, Ben Davies, welcome back to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you guys doing?
Hey, thanks, Derek. Doing good.
Thanks. Doing great.
Good. So you guys have been on the show before talking about different things, but now you're here for sort of a different reason. You were selected to be part of the Pennsylvania Hemp Steering Committee leadership team, and together you are heading up the Farmer and Processor Education and Outreach Subcommittee. So let's talk about it.
Ben, by default, do you just want to go first?
Sure. The Department of Ag decided that they wanted to start a steering committee, and they kind of assembled a group of well-rounded, maybe it could be better rounded than it is currently, but a membership for a steering committee that would advise the Department of Ag or be a little bit of a liaison between the rest of the industry and the Department of Ag. And then from within that, there was some nominations, and essentially, just nominated different leadership teams to basically lead certain pieces of the industry and the discussion, the networking, the communication for the steering committee in specific ways. And so Chet and I were nominated to be the leaders of the Farmer and Processor Education and Outreach Committee. And that's kind of like where the definition ends, and it's up to us kind of to decide, what our role is and what good we can do to create a better hemp industry in Pennsylvania, and how we can kind of move things forward. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have this call or this discussion with you, Eric, is because we wanted to, I think the thing that Chet and I came up with is that basically we feel like the most important thing for us to do is to help create better lines of communication between those groups, the farmers and the processors, and the Department of Ag, because it feels like for the most part, there's kind of a pretty big disconnect there, whereas like boots in the field and legislative activity aren't always lining up, and the practicality or the reality of those two things are not always lining up. And we want to make sure that the Department of Ag is well informed in its decision making, and then obviously processors and farmers are well educated about what they can or can't do and how to go about navigating it.
Chet, would you like to add anything there?
Well, I regret that I told Ben to go first because he's just going to cover the topic that well that there's nothing left, left to be said. No, that was well said. There's definitely I'm excited to be able to lend a hand. I know that some of the guys personally, guys and gals at PDA that are heading up the industrial hemp department, and they're trying. And they have a hard time hearing the farmer's voice at times. So we're really hoping we can bridge that gap, especially the Plain community. We're hoping to set up a avenue so they can, at least share their thoughts and opinions, and we'll try to break those down. And like Ben said, go back to PDA with that, and hopefully establish a good relationship and a good line of communication.
Okay. So that sounds like you have some goals in place. Do you have a plan now to implement?
I mean, we have some ideas. I think that Chet and I are both. We both don't necessarily feel like we speak for the farmers and the processors. Like we're not all knowing in that we know what everybody needs or thinks. We have a pretty good ear to the track, so to say. I guess we know what's going on generally speaking, but we decided that it would be best right now for us to, before we can really do the work of what the potential is here, we want to make sure that we develop good lines of communication, which we don't feel like are in place right now. And so we're brainstorming about how to do that. But what we just did today was set up basically an email address and a phone number that that farmers or processors can call. And then we want to try to gather a list of contacts for maybe a quarterly newsletter that we would email out, and also be able to have some at least maybe quarterly conference calls for the Plain community, and so we have that email address is, let me just make sure I say it right here. The email address, technical difficulties, farmerprocessoroutreach@gmail.com. So that's the email address, farmerprocessoroutreach@gmail.com. And then Chet has a Google phone number that he just established today that that can be called. And you want to say what that is, Chet?
Sure. So just back to the Gmail address, Eric, it's farmer, not plural, processor, not plural. It's farmer processor outreach.
Okay.
And the phone number is area code 717-455-7904. 455-7904.
Okay. And so farmers and or processors can call that number and leave a message and address their concerns. Is somebody going to be there to pick up, or is it always an answering machine?
It's going to go to voicemail.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I'm old school. I call it answering machine.
Yeah, both are, we would prefer that way we can. So Ben and I will be able to sort them out together then.
Okay, great.
And try, if there be multiple requests, we will try to work with it that way.
And you would encourage farmers and processors maybe just to call or email anyway, just to connect, whether you have a concern or not, but just to connect with you guys.
We're going to send out, I think, an email blast here just to ask for contact submissions, essentially, so that if farmers or processors do want to be involved and do want to be able to relay things to us, since we have a little bit more direct line to the Department of Ag that we want to make sure that we can aggregate those questions, concerns, and comments and be able to relay those efficiently to the Department of Ag and our contacts there. But also is just that we're kind of sending out the request email that we're going to send out an email blast requesting, but also, if you heard that email address and you want to be involved, you want to be in contact with any kind of like updates or news that might be happening, then if you just send an email to that email address or call that phone number and leave a voicemail with your contact information, then we'll be able to log that information and know that you're interested in those updates over time.
Okay, great. And I'll put those, the phone number and the email on the show page for this episode, and maybe we'll stick it in the paper for this Saturday too, so people can see it in Lancaster Farming.
That would be great, Eric. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what are some of the other obstacles or challenges that you hope to sort of address with this committee?
I mean, communication obviously is the first top priority, because we're not going to be able to get anything else done unless we've nurtured a little bit better lines of communication. So that's what our main goal here with this conversation is. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think that there's definitely some concerns on the legislative level. Obviously, we want to advocate for farmers and processors in Pennsylvania. I'll be honest, it's the elephant in the room. The medical marijuana program gets preferential treatment over hemp farms in PA. So why is there preferential treatment happening there? And what can we do to continue to advocate for hemp farmers equally as well? I think that there's a lot of loose ends when it comes to the processor side of things, and the handling of extract and all of those different things that are involved in that process of taking that hemp harvest and turning it into various stages, taking it in through various stages of the supply chain to, a retail product. So there's quite a few things there, even just including, legislation for CBD to be able to be used in food, and, some of the ingredient, like some of even just on the hemp seed side, and that's largely legal at this point. The hemp, I don't know if hemp was approved to be in the hemp seed was able to be approved as animal feed yet. There's some issues there.
I haven't heard that go through yet.
And obviously those are things that need to be moved forward. And then there's so many things regarding hemp fiber, regarding like building materials and approvals for, certain certifications for building materials to be used, and trying to establish better regional processors for hemp fiber as well, which is just kind of not really happening right now in Pennsylvania. So those are all things that we're concerned about, that we want to make sure. And then, things that affect every part of the hemp industry, like field testing for THC and the sampling procedures and the timeline for harvest and approvals from the Department of Ag. Mm-hmm. Those are things that there's new developments this year, and we want to make sure that no matter what, the farmer doesn't, get the short end of the stick.
There you go.
That's our primary objective, I think, is the farmers and the processors need to not get the short end of the stick when it comes to all of these things. There's no reason that we should be ever destroying crop.
Right. What about the instances where the farmer gets the short end of the stick from the processor? Is that a concern too? Because I've heard some stories.
I'm going to say another big elephant in the room is right next to what Ben said, is trying to protect the farmer here. And it is a really, really rough game right now, between, most most buyers are not the buyers, they're just brokers. It's just really tough. I mean, one of the things that I would like to do more than anything is just to start breaking down, and not in a malicious way, but just trying to establish some common ground, some trust. There's just no oversight, and of course we're mingling a little bit with some of the other subcommittees here, Eric. We're farmer processor, but it all ties together. So I know for Ben and I personally, we're very much advocates to try to help clean up that act. I mean, obviously we're not the department and we're not cops, but by all means, let's all work toward a common goal there. So if we communicate well, back to number one is we agree strongly that communication is the key here. And if we stand together as a group and just this has to work up and down the chain. So we need to make it work for the farmers, the processors, and touching briefly on the farmer processor thing, we're struggling. We're struggling for good processing. I'll let Ben say his piece. They're struggling. I'll be nice about it. The processors are struggling too. It's a tough game to get started in, and they're starting from scratch. They don't have, but one thing probably the only thing I'll say is just do what you said you're going to do, and I think we can crawl out of this together.
Yeah, getting back to what you said about establishing trust in there. I think you guys are perfect for this committee because of the work you're already doing. So you can lead by example. So I'm grateful that you guys are on this subcommittee.
Well, thanks, Eric.
Yeah, we're gonna keep trying.
Yeah. So we've talked about the outreach part of it. What does the education part of this mean to you guys?
I mean, for me, it's all integral. It's all integral there. I mean, establishing those lines of communication so that we can help educate farmers about program parameters. Like there's, one of the things we discussed on the most recent steering committee meeting here last week was that there's, see if I can find the numbers here, but there's basically close to 550 permit holders in Pennsylvania this year, and over 300 of them are new permit holders.
Wow.
So just a little over 200 that were renewals, but then over 300 of them are new permit holders. So people who've never grown hemp in Pennsylvania, at least before. So that's huge. I mean, that's a big leap in numbers of new farmers growing hemp in Pennsylvania. So there's definitely a learning curve. And
yeah, would you guys get into educating like growing practices, or would you sort of just facilitate getting people into education programs run by other people?
At this point, the latter.
Okay.
I am not in a position at all where that's not my wheelhouse. Right. I mean, I shouldn't say, I would have to reorganize my life a little bit.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I don't know that this is necessarily, we don't see ourselves, I mean, obviously we have other businesses. Both of us have multiple businesses that we're running. So and we're not getting paid to do this. We don't have any funding behind any of this. So this is purely volunteer role that we're in. And us doing this well helps our businesses, but obviously it will help other businesses in Pennsylvania and other farmers. And so we're just, I don't think that we have the bandwidth at this point to actually do educational programming or anything like that. Okay. But if we can establish a good network, and maybe a newsletter or something like that, we can always, add educational opportunities in there that people might be able to and it's not also not meant to necessarily be like call Chet and Ben for consultations on a weekly basis either. I think we may have some knowledge there, but that's not the point of it either. It's really just we're trying to help bridge the gap.
Yeah, amen to all that. I'm not even going to add.
Is there anything else you want to talk about the subcommittee? What am I forgetting to ask?
I don't know. I think I would encourage you to have the other subcommittee leadership on.
That's a great idea. Yep.
And possibly it would be great if you could have like Strathmeyer on, Fred Strathmeyer, he's doing, and then Kelly Kondratic from Team PA about the hemp summit. I'm sure you'll probably have her at some point, but I would say you could do it. I think it would be really valuable to just hear the different perspectives from the different committee leads, and how they, plan to try and create this whole, steering committee
right.
momentum, because I think there is an all-star cast. It's a lot of really good people in the industry who are going to be able to bring a lot of good expertise to the table, I think.
Yeah, it's an impressive list of people. I've actually spoken to most of them before. It was encouraging to see the list and be like, oh, I know most of these folks. So
yeah, Eric, the goal again was just to start with an email address and a phone number, and at least try. We're cringing a little bit. We don't know what that flow is. Repeating what Ben said, we're not getting paid for this. We're both passionate, but we're gonna have to be wise with our time and how things play out. So I will say this for anybody listening, don't expect an answer in 24 hours. It could go days before we get back to people.
Yeah.
So I just like to establish good expectations here.
Okay. Cool. So change gears a little bit. How are things going for you guys, growing wise? How's the season shaping up for you? And actually, I'm really asking Chet because, Ben, I talked to you on the show just a few weeks ago. And
yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, Chet, last time we spoke, it was the end of the season for you, I guess, last December. And last year you had quite a few growers, and I get the sense that this year you've got fewer.
Yes, and it's based around fonding. Last year we fonded a lot of our own crop, say a Bell Evans setup, mm-hmm. where they own the chickens the whole way through, and the in this case the grower grows the chickens, and then they take them back, and there's a agreed upon price. So it was mostly based around, we could have 100 farmers if we'd fond it, I think is fair to say. So this year we flipped the script. I basically said we can't go into year 2 like this. And so we ended up with a handful of farmers that said, we're willing to take the risks alongside of you. And I finally consented to that, and we moved forward. And then we got just a shout out to Joe Ullman and a fellow by the name of John Daffin. He is a short start transplant. So we basically jumped on Joe's back, Atlas Seed, and we were growing mostly all of his genetics.
The autoflowers.
The autoflowers,
yeah.
Yep, and some photo. He has a few photo and a little bit of photo from another source. But yeah, so we kind of built a team, so to speak. I help facilitate. I'm doing a little grow in my meadow. Eric, I guess you were at my meadow.
I was there. Yeah, that's a nice spot.
I'm doing a lot less because I'm doing auto,
mm-hmm.
and which is great. I can do the minimum grow, and it's not that big, which is per PDA standards. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So the farmer this year owns the plant, and we're facilitating, trying to build. The goal here is to build a co-op. Just start small and just kind of build it, if you want to say it that way. And we're working really hard at marketing, and I feel just put this in my intro. I'll just throw it in now. We are gearing toward, and this is kind of by default, the amount of biomass we have. We are working really hard at becoming a distributor, a supplier of the distributors. And like Ben's doing a lot of retail. We are also doing some retail. Our website's still not quite up and running. And but we're looking really strongly at doing wholesale tinctures, salves, and that kind of thing. So that is where we're putting the most of our effort. And I'm saying that for Keystone Agriscience.
Do you find that hemp is gaining sort of more acceptance in the plain communities in Lancaster County?
The sentiment is at an all-time low.
Oh.
Farmers haven't been paid well. Some have been paid a little. Investments have not come back. I think until the money flows, that it will be a little bit of a struggle. Overall, apart from that, a lot of people were helped. There would be a lot of, I don't know. There's negative and positive for sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure how to gauge that right. I would say from an investment standpoint, the sentiment is low.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time today. Is there any last words? Ben, do you want to say anything before we close it up?
No, I mean, I think we're good. I appreciate the opportunity, and we got it. It's another season, another new program, kind of, it feels like. So just gonna keep trudging forward here and see what plays out.
Right.
I'm all in it together, and if you're involved right now, it's still the beginning of this industry. So you just gotta kind of play your cards right and persevere and be patient.
Yeah, you said something key there. We're all in this together. So
we're in the first inning, but let's do this together.
Yep. All right. Well, Ben Davies from Wild Fox Provisions and Chet Lapp from Keystone Agriscience, thank you both very much for your time today. It's great talking to you guys again.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Okay, so I'll list that email address and phone number on the show page for this episode, and we'll have it listed in the newspaper this Saturday. I encourage you to reach out to these guys, let them know your concerns, be heard, all that stuff. Okay, so before we go, I have one more thing to share with you. You might not be aware of it, but a couple of months ago, I started making this show available over the telephone. You can call 857-385-7946 and listen to the show. This might seem odd to listen to a podcast without the internet, but for a certain segment of Lancaster Farming's readers, this is the only way to hear the show. And I owe a debt of gratitude to my next guest for getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, I'm David Stoltz. I'm in the Honeybrook area, and I have a small welding shop here. We do custom welding and repairs, and we have also worked on hemp equipment. We've built some new machinery.
Oh, good. Okay, and so you were trying to listen to the podcast before, but you don't have a cell phone or a computer to use, and so you were hoping that we could somehow make it so you could call up from a regular phone and listen to the podcast. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, well, how did you first hear about the podcast, and why were you interested in it?
First of all, I saw the ads in the Lancaster Farming is how I found out about the podcast, and I had some interest in the hemp fields the last couple of years, and I actually grew about 30 plants last year myself, and then I got into some of the manufacturing part of the machinery last fall.
And so you're a member of the Plain communities of Lancaster County.
That's right.
And so that sort of limits your ability to get onto a computer and listen to a podcast the way maybe an English person might.
That's right. And I knew there's some I've often listened to recordings over the phone on other subjects, and I just thought there had to be a way, because I have interest in the hemp industry, and I wanted to listen to podcasts, but I didn't have any means here in the office except by phone.
Right. And then so who did you talk to?
I talked to Steve Groff, and he said he'd call you, Eric, and he called, and then about a week later I called Steve back, and he said, yep, it's on. So that's when I started listening for myself.
That's right. Yeah, Steve reached out to me, and I wasn't sure how to do it at first, but then eventually I found an app company called Bullhorn that let me put our show there so you could call in and listen.
It's been about a month or so that I've been listening to it, and I've been going back to some of the previous episodes too, the ones that I had missed before.
So what aspects of the show do you like? What else would you like to hear about?
I really enjoyed the local ones, the one you had last week of the local people, and also it really sparked my interest that there's actually other machine shops that do custom work for the hemp industry. There's this one, I think it was in Lycoming County, that the brother said he had a local shop is working on a hemp harvesting machine.
Yeah, that was Josh Lydecker up at Susquehanna Hemp.
And that really piqued my interest, because I think it's awesome how this crop is allowing local shops, even not just the farmers, to be involved and bring out machines that large factories, production factories, won't be able to do in a short period. Right.
Yeah, with a small shop, you can sort of prototype something and get it out to some farmers in a relatively quick fashion.
Yeah, and it happened to us last fall for a couple of machines. There was a hemp plucking machine, and there's also hemp trimmers, which we build here in our shop, both of them, and we build them for other farmers. We really enjoyed that, and it was pretty hectic a couple of weeks, but it worked.
So what's the name of your shop?
Supply Hollow Machine.
Say it one more time.
Supply Hollow Machine. It's spelled S as in Sam, U, P as in Peter, L as in Lion, then E-E. Hollow Machine.
Supply Hollow Machines. Okay, great. Is there a phone number that people could call if they wanted to hear about it? What's that phone number?
Phone number is 610-469-4169.
Okay, great. And just curious if there are topics that you would like to hear about in the future on the show.
Well, the topic that interests me is how the farmers are getting paid and what's happening now, and also in what kind of needs do farmers see. I know there's a lot of hand labor, especially for the premium hemp flower. There's a lot of hand labor, and those hemp trimmers that we built really help to reduce that labor. What I like to hear about is the needs that farmers have in machinery. That's a bit of a niche that we have, is custom special equipment.
Do you get a sense that the Plain communities are more accepting of hemp now?
Yes, I do. It varies some, depends who you talk to, just like anywhere else. People have different opinions. There's not as much talk about it anymore. As it was last fall. Yeah. Since the coronavirus came about, there's not nearly as much gossip anymore, but the people that are committed to it are keep right on going. And I feel there's a niche here in our community to grow hemp. Mm-hmm. I feel we have the labor, and we're close to the soil. There's a lot of very good produce farmers in this area, and I feel they have a niche that may need to be filled.
Yeah. How about hemp as a medicine? Do you get a sense that members of your community use, let's say, CBD for medicine?
Oh, yes, it gets used. It gets used a lot, yes.
Yeah. Have you heard any stories, like in particular, of someone whose life has been changed by it?
Well, I know, and even in family here, my dad has some trouble with an ankle that he's used some hemp salve, and it has really helped. Yes, I know of different, just hearsay of different people that he has helped to take the pain and the swelling away.
Right. Well, that's good. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you listening to our show and for also getting in touch with me. It's great to connect with members of our larger community.
You're welcome, man. I appreciate you taking the time to do this for us.
All right. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
That's David Stoltzfus. He's the guy who got me to put this show on the telephone. So, thanks again. All right, well, that pretty much does it for today's show. Thank you for listening. Hope you all are doing well, staying safe, being smart, right? Taking care of each other, because we're all in this together. And, our survival depends on us working together. All right, so my name is Eric Herlock. I am the digital editor at Lancaster Farming Newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out online at lancasterfarming.com. Become a subscriber, Check us out in real life, IRL, if you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so you can always get in touch with me, podcast at lancasterfarming.com. Drop me a line, tell me a story, tell me who you are. I would love to hear from you. Speaking of telephones, you can always leave me a message at 717-721-4462. Leave me a message. I'll get back to you. All right, so until next time, I'll see you in the newspaper.
Industrial hemp.
Episode 93 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2020 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family. The show was written, recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Herlock. The wonderful music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.